Currently, it is 81 degrees here on the campus of St. Louis Community College at Florissant Valley. I'm Jell with your noon news update. Family and friends are mourning the death of a man who was shot and killed by a St. Louis police officer 4 years ago. A vigil was held last night at Shaw Boulevard and Clem Street to honor Von Derek Myers Jr. Myers was shot by Officer Jason Flannery in October 2014, which prompted protests. Flannery was never charged, but later resigned from the force after police opened an investigation into a 2015 drunk driving crash. An investigation is underway following separate shootings over the weekend that left several teens wounded. Police say a 13-year-old was shot in the leg Sunday in the 3500 block of Nebraska Avenue. Earlier in the day, an 18-year-old and a 14-year-old suffered gunshot wounds in the 1300 block of North 10th Street. All the victims were conscious and breathing when they were taken to hospitals for treatment. And 2 teenage boys are wanted in a deadly shooting over the weekend in St. Louis. Police say Jacob Hudson was found dead Saturday in the 6600 block of Idaho Avenue. He had been shot in the head. Investigators believe the suspects are 16 to 18 years old. But in campus news, we have the World Climate Simulation coming up. The World Climate Simulation is a role-playing exercise of the UN climate change negotiations. As a participant, you will gain climate change awareness and experience some of the dynamics that emerge in the UN climate negotiations. The exercise is framed by current climate change science using the interactive C-Roads computer simulation, which allows participants to find out how their proposed policies impact the global climate system in real time. Open to STEM and non-STEM majors, the entire program is completed in 1 3-hour day. Participants will earn a certificate of participation from UMass. That will be Wednesday, October 31st, from 1:30 to 4:30 p.m. in the Emerson lobby. Space is limited, so to reserve your spot, please contact Trio Advisor Whitney Williams, phone number 314-513-4295, or email wwilliams87@stlcc.edu. And now, on to the weather. Today, it is mostly cloudy, high of 85, low of 71. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we are expecting thunderstorms with a high of 75, low of 46. Thursday, it is looking to be sunny with a high of 59, low of 41. Friday, partly cloudy, high of 52, low of 43. And Saturday, partly cloudy, high of 62, low of 50. So, sounds like Wednesday, Thursday, it might finally be fall. Anyway, that concludes our news and weather. Currently, it is 81 degrees here at KCFV. I'm Jell, and this has been your noon news update. But please stay tuned, because after a short break, we will be back with GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. We kick the show off with the new game releases for this week, what's coming out next week, what anime are in theaters, before getting into all sorts of video game news. So please stay tuned for that. Until then, though, here is Blue by 7 Star, here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. That was Blue by 7 Star here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. We like to kick the show off with the new game releases for this week, what's coming out next week, what anime are in theaters, before taking yet another break and diving in to all sorts of random video game news. So, let's kick this list off with the PlayStation 4 as usual. This week on PlayStation 4, we have Air Missions Hind, Disgaea 1 Complete, Evasion, which I believe is a PlayStation VR game? Yes, indeed it is. Mark of the Ninja Remastered, My Memory of Us, Pinball FX3 Williams Pinball Volume 1, Punchline, which is indeed a visual novel based on the very strange anime series from a few years back. I don't know which one came first, but whatever, it's in America now. Following that, we've got Space Hulk Tactics, Stranded Deep, Super Blackjack Battle 2, Turbo Edition, The Card Warriors, Valkyria Chronicles 4, Squad E to the Beach, which is, of course, DLC, and WWE 2K19. Then, later on in the week, we have The Missing J.J. McField and the Island of Memories, which I believe is a game from our good pal Sweary, makers of Deadly Premonition and Spy Fiction. And then on the 12th, we've got 8-Bit Adventure Anthology Volume 1, which is a collection of Shadowgate, Uninvited, and Deja Vu for your PlayStation 4. Indeed, I believe they are the NES versions. And also, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 comes out. And then, yeah, that's it for this week. Xbox One, what do you got? Xbox One is getting Mark of the Ninja Remastered, Pinball FX3 Williams Pinball Volume 1, Space Hulk Tactics, Stranded Deep, Valkyria Chronicles 4, Squad E to the Beach, Warface, WWE 2K19. Then on tomorrow, we've got Cronus Arc, which is a port of one of Kemco's cell phone games. Kemco releases new JRPGs on iPhone and Android like every month. I remember this one coming out looking kind of good, and now it's getting released on like Xbox Live. It's a download. Moving on, Deployment, Devious Dungeon, My Memory of Us, Spencer, The Missing J.J. McField and the Island of Memories, Call of Duty Black Ops 4, and Guns, Gore, and Cannoli 2. Moving on, Nintendo Switch this week has Bombing Busters and Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition. Then today, Cat Quest, Disgaea 1 Complete, Goosebumps the Game, Mark of the Ninja Remastered, Pinball FX3, Williams Pinball, Volume 1. Let's see. Then we've got Valkyria Chronicles 4, Squad E to the Beach. Tomorrow, Shift Happens, and then on the 11th, we've got Battle Group 2, Boom Ball Boost Edition, Chasm, Child of Light Ultimate Edition, Dungeon Village, Feral Fury, Game Dev Story, Hot Spring Story, Iris School of Wizardry, Vinculum Hearts, Joggernauts, Madurica Real Estate, The Missing J.J. McField and the Island of Memories, Tricky Towers, and then on the 12th, Broken Age, and The World Ends With You, Final Mix, for all those people who aren't me and actually like that game. I can't stand The World Ends With You. I know I'm kind of alone on this one. Anyway, some of these I want to clarify. Number 1, Irish School of Wizardry, Vinculum Hearts, is actually an Otome game. So, ladies, if you're looking for a dating sim full of pretty boys, that's happening. There's a couple others of those on the Switch, by the way. Also, the Dungeon Village, Game Dev Story, and Hot Spring Story are ports of very, very good iPhone, Android simulation games from, I forget the name of the company, Kakao Soft. And they do a really good job. I know they're a little bit pricier on the Switch, but I am definitely picking up Game Dev Story. It's actually Game Dev Story Plus, but whatever. I've played Game Dev Story on my Android tablet back when I used that thing and it wasn't a complete mess. And, yeah, it is a ludicrously good little simulation of running a game development studio. Good, very good times to be had with that. Moving on. 3DS, this week, Friday, is getting Luigi's Mansion, and Vita this week has Punchline. Moving on, next week, PlayStation 4 is getting Raised, then Crayola Scoot, Fast Striker, which is a top-down shoot-'em-up, Flipping Death, For Honor, Marching Fire, and For Honor, Marching Fire Edition, so I guess, a new physical release, I would assume. Heavy Fire, Red Shadow, Home Sweet Home, Lego DC Supervillains, NBA 2K Playgrounds 2, Penguin Coon Wars, supposedly. Cripes, that game is having the darndest time coming out in America. The physical release is apparently out, but they're having trouble getting the digital release out, and the physical release could only be purchased if you pre-ordered it from the website. It's a mess. Following that, Starlink Battle for Atlas, which may well be the last of the Toys to Life games, but heck if they aren't going to try. Then The Hunter Call of the Wild 2019 edition, and Warriors Orochi 4. Did not see that coming so soon. Speaking of things I didn't see coming so soon, then we have Jackbox Party Pack 5, and then Resonance of Fate 4K HD edition. That's gonna be out next week. Okay. Kinda wouldn't mind playing that again. And Sinner's Sacrifice for Redemption. And, 19th is still next week. Then Dark Souls Trilogy, Owlboy Limited Edition. And, oh my goodness, Soul Calibur 6 is next week. Are you kidding me? Next Friday, Soul Calibur 6. That's happening. Brace for disappointment. Moving on, Xbox One is getting Crayola Scoot, For Honor Marching Fire Edition. Heavy Fire Red Shadow, Home Sweet Home, LEGO DC Supervillains, NBA 2K Playgrounds 2, Starlink, Battle for Atlas, The Hunter Call of the Wild 2019 Edition, Warriors Orochi 4, Sinner Sacrifice for Redemption, Dark Souls Trilogy, Owlboy Limited Edition, and Soul Calibur 6. Nintendo Switch next week is getting Raised Big Buck Hunter Arcade, Candle, The Power of the Flame, Crayola Scoot, Exhorter, Flipping Death, LEGO DC Supervillains, NBA 2K Playgrounds 2, Rapala Fishing Pro Series, Starlink, Battle for Atlas, which that's the one that comes with, that has Star Fox in it, so it's the one that everyone actually wants. Valkyria Chronicles, and Warriors, that's Valkyria Chronicles 1, and Warriors Orochi 4, as well as, is that still next week? Yes, Daru, The Art of Cooperation, the Jackbox Party Pack 5, Drift Legends, Moto Racer 4, Sinner, Sacrifice for Redemption, Siberia 3, The Room without Tommy Wiseau, Will, A Wonderful World, and Dark Souls Remastered, finally, I Hate Running Backwards, Owlboy Limited Edition, Pizza Titan Ultra, and Tied Together. 3DS next week gets nothing! Wow, it doesn't get anything for like 2 months. Next 3DS game that I have scheduled is in January. So it's done for the year. And let's see, the Vita is getting Fast Striker, which was a top-down shooter. So that sums up our new game releases. As for anime in theaters, we've just got Spirited Away at the end of the month. October 28th dubbed, October 29th subbed, and October 30th subbed. So if you ever wanted to see Spirited Away in theaters again, part of Studio Ghibli Fest 2018, it will be in theaters at the end of the month. So do enjoy that. That wraps up our new game releases for this week, as well as what is coming out next week and what anime are in theaters. Friendly reminder that I need to put on this list, though, is that there is rumors. I know a lot of those mentions were tempting you to possibly buy a Switch, but there is talk of a new Switch edition in development, a new model, which is good, because a lot of people forget this. The Nintendo Switch actually has a lot of really terrible design flaws that they need to work out. The question, of course, being, what will this new Switch contain? We'll talk about that in greater detail later in the show, because we need to recap what all the Switch does poorly and what needs to be fixed, and how the rumors are all over the place, because everyone thinks they know what the new Switch is, but no one actually knows what the new Switch is. We don't even know if the new Switch is even really coming. It's like a leak out of Nintendo, but it's so overwhelmingly believable we'd all be... Actually, no, I think Nintendo might have said something official. Yeah, I think they said something to a shareholders meeting. I need to double check all this. So, I'll get on that during our break. But yeah, there is supposed to be a new Nintendo Switch edition, and egad, Warriors Orochi 4 and Soul Calibur 6 next week. Yeesh. Yo, the funny thing is, I don't have too terribly much video game news for this week, and honestly, looking at that release list, this week's slow week. But we are in the middle of the game Deluge, and that picks up again next week, which is Soul Calibur 6 and Warriors Orochi 4. I need both of those. Warriors Orochi 4 is looking promising. It's very much a we're sorry about Dynasty Warriors 9, which they're actually trying to fix. We'll talk about that later in the program, too. For the record, though, I do need to mention this. Apparently, everyone's going to be out of the office for next week, so there will not be a show next week. I will not be doing a GameBabble Live. So I will have to get back to you week after next about how Soul Calibur 6 turns out, how much of a inevitable disappointment that's going to be. If you're wondering about my cynicism surrounding Soul Calibur 6, well, to be blunt, Soul Calibur 5 was an embarrassment. Soul Calibur 6 was announced and set to come out, like, way too close to one another. It really doesn't seem like this game has a full dev cycle behind it. And more importantly, the game appears to be launching with less characters than Soul Calibur 4. And looking at the character models, it looks like most of them are actually recycled from Soul Calibur 4. This is, of course, hard to believe because the game is gorgeous, but that was the thing. Soul Calibur 4, which was released, like, I want to say like a decade ago now, Soul Calibur 4 was gorgeous. Soul Calibur 4 is still a beautiful game. I actually have no qualms with them recycling models. I have qualms with them recycling models and not giving us the full roster. I have qualms with them recycling models and giving us very little new content. Because, yeah, the character creation looks to be all the same parts we had in Soul Calibur 4 and 5, just literally copy-pasted over. In fact, we are being sold the same DLC pack of costume bits again for the third time. Yeah, there's one costume pack. A friend of mine has informed me of this. That there is one costume pack that was sold as DLC for Soul Calibur 4, sold again as DLC for Soul Calibur 5, and is set to come out as DLC for Soul Calibur 6. So we will have been given the opportunity to buy the same DLC 3 times over the past, like, decade. With, like, no changes to it. So you can see why I'm a little skeptical about Soul Calibur 6, which is currently set to possibly be the last Soul Calibur game because Namco hates the Soul Calibur series. They have been abusing the Soul Calibur team to an embarrassing degree, to the point where the guy in charge practically, might kind of be a little on the suicidal side at this point. And, yeah, they aren't giving them the dev time or resources needed to make a good Soul Calibur game. They're doing the best they can with what they have. And every time, it's just a mess. I'm glad I'm not a super hardcore Soul Calibur fan. I've been playing since Soul Edge. I love the series, but I never got that far into it. I never played competitively. My heart goes out to all the competitive Soul Calibur players. All the people who really love this series, because all y'all have been jerked around like you wouldn't believe. Some of you don't even realize it yet. I'm still angry about Soul Calibur 5. I'm never going to stop being angry about Soul Calibur 5 either. Because it was basically Soul Calibur 4, except less and worse. I mean, it went faster, it had better netcode, but it had no content and no characters. Anyway, I'm rambling at this point. It's time for us to take a short break. So here is Gargoyle by Psych Squared here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and please stay tuned. That was Oh Yeah by Alan Gates here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. Though, if you ever miss an episode, just hit up YouTube, search up GameBabble Live Archive, and you will find over 60 episodes archived of the show, and I will try to get the newest episodes up as fast as I can, though things do sometimes get in the way. I am trying to get them up within a day or 2 or 3 of the actual show. Speaking of the actual show, there is no show next week because people are just going to be out of the office. So I will get back to y'all week after next about how Soul Calibur 6 turns out. I will most likely stream the game with one of my friends, because I have a friend who likes Soul Calibur a lot, and he's a good bit saltier than I am about Soul Calibur 6. He's almost as salty as I am about Dead or Alive 6, which, by the way, Dead or Alive 6 did show Tina, Mila, and Bass. Yay, they're here. I can't really discuss much more of this mess on the air, and I'm kind of trying to just ignore that the game exists for my own health's sake, because Dead or Alive 6 is such a dumpster fire at this point that often when I talk about it, it's bad for my health. I'm not even kidding. To make a long story short, the game is being developed in less than a year, will launch with an incomplete roster, with Nyo Tengu and Phase 4 being DLC. Nyo Tengu is a pre-order bonus. Phase 4 is a special edition bonus. On top of that fact, it looks like tag mode is being cut from the game, a feature that has been in the Dead or Alive series since Dead or Alive 2. And they are adding in a number of features to dumb the game down and make it more accessible for casual players, which is honestly the last thing that Dead or Alive needed, because most people could just button mash their way through it anyway. But now we have an actual mashable button that allows you to do crazy, stupid, undodgeable combos. On top of a new focus on, you know what, I don't even know, because the Dead or Alive producers are just talking out of both sides of their mouths at this point. They're trying to cater to two completely different audiences, and nothing is working, and the whole game is just, it looks nice, but at the same time, it's way too rushed. And the worst part is, it's gonna play just fine. Dead or Alive 5 is amazing, and they're just copy-pasting that over. It's just Dead or Alive 5 is going to be a better game, because it'll have more content. Period, it is. Same game, more content, why would you play Dead or Alive 6? That's my point. And the frustrating thing is the number of people who are blindly excited about Dead or Alive 6, even though it will invariably be inferior to Dead or Alive 5, just period, in almost every way. The stages look better, at least. Visuals are improved a little bit. But in general, it's like, why would you play Dead or Alive 6 when you can play Dead or Alive 5, which is a better game that you can get for free or buy for stupid cheap because it's been out for like 5 years now? It's kind of my point. And the worst part is, when I argue this point, when I point out all the problems with it, people go, like, I actually got someone who responded to me and said, wow, you must hate a lot of fighters that came out in the last 5 years. And they listed off, Street Fighter 5 launched incomplete, and Tekken 7 doesn't have a tag mode, and Soul Calibur 6 is launching incomplete. And I'm like, yeah, I complain about Soul Calibur 6 every week on my show. I am very concerned about it and almost don't like the fact that I'm picking it up, except that it lets me make custom Lizardmen and has a custom character story mode. That is like 90% of the reason why I'm buying this game. And like Soul Calibur, the netcode seemed pretty nice in what I played of it, but I like Soul Calibur. It looks better than 5 at least, which is more than I can say about Dead or Alive 6. Street Fighter 5 I still haven't picked up, because every time I think about picking it up, it does something else to disappoint me and make me say, you know what, maybe I don't need Street Fighter 5. And Tekken 7 was actually kind of a disappointment. Not because it didn't have tag mode, because unlike Dead or Alive, Tekken's tag mode is set for separate Dream Match games, which I generally like better, but still, Tekken 7 did feel rather lacking and incomplete. So yeah, no, I have been disappointed in nearly every fighter in the past 5 years, except, like, Chaos Code, of course, is my favorite. I've been enjoying SNK Heroines. Guilty Gear Xrd and Dragon Ball Fighter Z are really good. But yeah, I've been disappointed in a lot of fighters. I skipped Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle because they're like, oh, we're going to launch the game with only half the roster and sell the other half the roster later as DLC, even though they're done already. Maybe I'll pick the game up once they release, like, the further DLC, because they're hinting that they might have Arcana Heart characters as DLC. Or possibly Senran Kagura. And when that happens, then I'll care. But until then, I didn't even really like the demo I played of Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle. Was not feeling that game. But anyway, yeah, I am. I have concerns about Soul Calibur 6. But hey, let's get on to a happier topic. I think Konami is remembering how to games. For those of you unfamiliar, couple years back, Konami freaking imploded. They let go Hideo Kojima, head guy behind the Metal Gear series, and one of their most celebrated employees. Lots of employees mentioned that the work environment was incredibly unpleasant, with just way too much surveillance, way too strict. And Konami seemed to sort of be, like, just focusing entirely on the pachinko machine market. Nearly everyone left Konami, and they were a husk of their former self, and people pretty much hated Konami. But now, Koji Igarashi also left, the head guy behind the Castlevania series. He, of course, has his new Castlevania-like Bloodstained is in development. That was kickstarted. That's getting further. There's an 8-bit spin-off of it that's available now while they continue development on the core game, which has had a couple demos now. So it's in good development right now. But, yeah, Konami basically, they fell apart. But now they seem to kind of be coming back together. They released that new Super Bomberman on the Switch and then ported it to everything else. And they've been making good money off of that. That was a thing. And then Zone of the Enders got that VR release on PlayStation VR, can also be played in 4K. And now we've got Castlevania Requiem on the horizon, which is going to have Dracula X Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night. And it is going to use the PSP translations from Dracula X Chronicles, for better or for worse. So, unfortunately, no, what is a man? But it will be a more accurate translation. The question is, will it have the bonus features? Because the PSP version of Symphony of the Night in Dracula X Chronicles actually added its own unique version of Maria to the game. See, in the Sega Saturn release of Castlevania Symphony of the Night, they had 3 different playable characters. They had a resprited Richter that had more moves, as well as Maria Renard, who actually used Street Fighter-style kung fu, and you did quarter circle motions and stuff with her. But that was deemed non-canon because Koji Igarashi hates when women engage in melee combat. It's just a thing with him. I am actually serious. And so he redid Maria to play more like how she did in Dracula X Rondo of Blood, where she throws birds at people, which, for the record, is insanely powerful. Maria is kind of the strongest character in Castlevania canon. Accidentally, but still. So, yeah, and that was only in the PSP version that they took Maria and had her do the bird throwing thing. And I'm wondering if that's going to come back, because I would actually like to play some Symphony of the Night with bird throwing Maria, because with any Maria, but bird throwing Maria would be very interesting to have that actually on console. So we will see how that turns out, but I want to say this as well, because of all things, Konami has updated the Suikoden website. There's no real new content on there, but we haven't heard anything about Suikoden since February 18th, 2013. So it's been 5 years since anything Suikoden related has happened, and all of a sudden the website gets a redesign? Could something be brewing with Suikoden? That would probably make a lot of people happy. Now, don't count on a new Suikoden. You know what you should count on? You know what you could bet money on? Suikoden Complete. Either a Suikoden Complete collection, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They could skip 4, I hear. But, either that or, ports of 1 and 2, maybe 5. I could easily see that happening, especially because the Switch is a port magnet. And it would take almost no work to just be like, oh yeah, Suikoden 1, and there, it's on the Switch. Oh, Suikoden 2, there, it's on the Switch. Oh, Suikoden 5, there, it's on the Switch. Maybe some 3, maybe some 4. Just re-release them all. Be great. Speaking of re-releasing, yeah, so it would appear, let me, bring this up. Borderlands 2 VR has been announced for the PlayStation VR. Hooray! At nearly full price. And the only reason you're able to get away with this is because you're re-releasing it in VR. You know, a part of me really wants this. A part of me doesn't want to give Gearbox a penny. Me and Gearbox don't get along. But I am very interested in playing Borderlands 2 VR. But a lot of it depends on if they're going to have PlayStation aim support, which they have not said anything about as far as I can tell. I don't know if I'd buy this without PlayStation aim support. Like, I might. It's certainly a nice meaty game to play in VR, and they've said it will have smooth locomotion as well as teleport, but I would really like some PlayStation aim support. That would make the game a much more enjoyable thing. Also, that fitness boxing game has actually been announced for Europe and North America. For those of you who haven't been keeping up, it's weird that I'm paying attention to this, but you know what? I actually kind of want this game. So, Imagineer, like a couple weeks ago, announced a blatant Nintendogs clone and a blatant what looked like a Wii Fit clone with fitness boxing. The box art makes it look like a Wii Fit clone. But in reality, it's DDR with punches for your Switch. And it has actual, like, characters and stuff. And I looked at it, and it was only being announced for Japan, but the entire soundtrack was popular US music. Like Party Rock Anthem and Call Me Maybe. Those are in the game, in the Japanese version. And I was like, this is getting the US release. Well, now it's confirmed. European release is December 21st. US release January 4th. Don't know why it's taken a couple extra weeks to get it to North America, but whatever, I will play this. It looks kind of fun. I like music games. They want to make me punch to the music. I will play that. Do we have a trailer for this? Oh, no. Dang. I was hoping I could actually see the blasted thing in action, but no sign of fitness boxing in action. Either way, looks promising. I look forward to playing it. Let's see. And on that note, we should probably talk about that new Switch. I think we'll do that after the break. Let's see, what else do we have to talk about? Real quick, like Overwatch Halloween 2018 event. Doomfist, Moira, and Wrecking Ball have Halloween skins now. Yay. It seems like things are kind of cooling when it comes to Overwatch. And hearing people not being that happy. Puyo Puyo Esports, though, I found out a little bit more about that. They did announce a new Puyo Puyo game titled Puyo Puyo Esports, and the good news, it's going to be a budget title. Like, that's the whole thing. It's like, okay, this is going to have less meat and less content than Puyo Puyo Tetris. It's not going to be as robust of a game. It's, like, blatantly built off of that, but, no Tetris, and it's going to be a bit lacking in content. The focus is going to be entirely on, oh, hey, you could play this multiplayer locally and online. It'll let you play against computer opponents and stuff like that. The main focus is less on single-player content, more on multiplayer esports content. I know it has both Puyo Puyo 2 and Puyo Puyo Fever Rules. I don't know who the heck would play with Fever Rules in a tournament, because Fever is garbage, but it's there. So it has Puyo Puyo 2 and Fever Rules. Be playing 2 rules, and yeah, it's gonna be a budget title. It's like, that's actually kind of a good idea, because I love me some Puyo Puyo. I know there are some people who only care about playing, like, competitive multiplayer, so saying, okay, here's one specifically focused on competitive multiplayer being sold at a budget price to get the most people into it is a good idea. Anyway, they've shown off some of the characters, which include Draco Centaurus, Harpy, Witch, and Seriri from the original series, and Sultana and Penglai, among many others from Puyo Quest, are showing up, along with some Fever and Anniversary characters. Amity and Ringo are all in there. It's a pretty good roster of character. Lagnus is there. Most people don't care about Puyo characters. I care about Puyo characters. I'm happy to see them. I'm happy to see Harpy back. She's always fun. Draco's my favorite. So, I haven't seen Sariri in a good long while as well. So, I'm happy to see all these characters showing back up for Puyo Puyo Esports. I can't believe that is actually the title of the game. But like I said, Puyo Puyo is one of the original esports. Go on YouTube. Look up Puyo Puyo tournament. There's a tournament from like 1996 for Puyo Puyo 2. As in Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine on the Genesis. Yeah, they had a tournament for that. With a huge turnout and people in costumes and everything. It's beautiful. It's like this is the original esport before the internet. Beautiful. Beautiful. Can't wait. I am kind of excited about Puyo Puyo Esports. Anyway, I do believe it's a good time to take a break. So here is Jiggin' by YC here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. And stay tuned for more Game. That was Self-Care by Mac Miller here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. Welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. Before we get on with our discussion about the new Switch model, I just want to say a little more information has come out involving Borderlands 2 VR. Thus far, there is no sign of aim support. It looks like I think it'll have PlayStation Move support, but it might only be teleport movement with the moves. We'll find out. Hopefully not. Hopefully it has smooth movement with the moves. I'm perfectly fine with the weird setup where the move button is move forward and X and circle are turn left and right. I've worked with that. It's actually quite nice. It does not have any of the DLC characters, despite being sold at nearly full price for being a, like... Oh, geez, how many years... Let me look this up. How old is Borderlands 2? Let's see. Borderlands 2 came out in 2012. So, 6 years old. Despite being a 6-year-old game from last generation, it's going to be sold at nearly full price without any of the DLC characters. And apparently no multiplayer, even though it's a game designed specifically for multiplayer. Likely won't have any of its DLC content either. Basically, Gearbox is being lazy and screwing us over and hoping they can get away with it because they're slapping on VR support. Which a part of me wants to play this in VR. And another part of me says, Gearbox, stop being lazy. You know what? Slight rant here. This is why I didn't play friggin' Borderlands 3. This is why I was disappointed in Borderlands 2. Okay, Borderlands, if you never played it, it's a 4-player co-op, like, open-world, first-person shooter RPG. It's kind of like Diablo, except as a first-person shooter. You run around, you take on quests, you shoot things, you collect randomly generated guns. Brilliant concept. It had local split screen. It had online multiplayer. It was a good idea. And the original game had 4 different playable characters. And I was like, I can't wait for them to expand on this. And then the sequel comes out, and it has 4 playable characters. I'm like, really? Really, this is 4 characters. And they're pretty much like, a lot of them are really similar to the previous 4 characters. It's just a new 4 characters. It's Maya instead of Lilith, you see. And I'm like, it's the same friggin' character. You changed a few moves around. This isn't how you do it. When you're making a game like this, you recycle your content from the first game and then you add on to it. Take the previous original 4 characters, then add 4 more characters. Borderlands 2 should have had 8 characters, but no, it launched with 4. If they were going to do just 4, like, all new classes, then fine, make it 6 characters. Make it more than 4. But no, they launched with 4 characters, and then there were some DLC classes, and that's all fine and dandy. You should have launched with more than 4 characters. And then they did the 3rd Borderlands. It was the pre-sequel, and it was 4 characters again. Don't even get me started on the company's stupid internal politics. Holding my tongue, we're on the radio. Hello, everybody. Let's not try using that dump button, shall we? Yeah, so this is what drove me insane about Borderlands. I'm like, you guys, You need to expand. You keep making the same game over and over and over again, and you don't expand it, except you do expansion DLC, which that's fine, but start with a larger game instead of a game of the same size every time. Do you even know what you're doing? You don't know how to develop this game. And of course, I was skeptical of Gearbox ever since they did friggin' Samba de Amigo on the Wii, which was a dumpster fire. And now, of course, these are the people who did Aliens, Colonial Marines. These people also, what was the name of that game? Shoot. They took some other old game from the previous generation, Bulletstorm. Good game, Bulletstorm. But they actually, like, a couple years ago, they re-released Bulletstorm on new consoles at full price. And the only thing they added was if you pre-ordered it, you could play as Duke Nukem. Which, that's fine, except if you didn't pre-order it, there's literally no new content, and you're paying full price for a game that was like 3 years old. Maybe even 4 years old at that time. I forget. But the point was, like, I'm pretty sure Gearbox must be in a bad financial state. And it's a shame that that the guy I know who's friends with Gearbox people thinks I'm a horrible human being, because I enjoy Godanner. I think it's a fantastic anime. I really wish I could talk to that guy again. I want to know what he's thinking. Especially with the announcement of Borderlands 2 VR. I want to know. But, yeah, so Borderlands 2 VR very much looks like a quick and dirty cash grab by Gearbox in a desperate attempt to stay afloat, and the lack of 4-player co-op online, huge problem right there. Like, I can't believe they're doing that. The fact that I don't see any aim support, huge problem there. The fact that it's not like an edition that comes with all the stuff, huge problem. When they did Skyrim VR, and they're like, we're gonna sell Skyrim again at nearly full price, it was Skyrim with all the DLC and all the content in VR with lots of options. I don't see the same thing here from Borderlands 2 VR. This looks like a cheap cash grab. Considering the time between announcement and release, I would believe that. This is the thing I've been doing. Sorry, I hit the microphone. Hands going a little wild there. Sorry about your ears. Anyway, so this is the thing that's been going on a lot recently. If you've noticed on the show where I'm going, the time between announcement and release is too short. Because usually games are announced like a good bit ahead of time and then they come out. I guess maybe companies are just deciding to shrink that down, because I know maybe I should be less skeptical of that. Because Devil May Cry 5 was just announced very recently. And that game has very clearly been in development for like 5 years. They just only now announced it. And it's coming out like in March, I think. So soon. But even still, generally speaking, games are announced when they've only been in development for, a couple months to a year. They've got like a trailer, a vertical slice. And then, 2 years, 3 years later, they actually come out. That's generally been the way it's been going. But recently, I've been seeing a lot of games that get announced and it's like, oh yeah, and then it comes out in a couple months. And that is making me very suspicious. Both Borderlands 2 VR, where it's literally just, hey, we're taking Borderlands 2, we're putting it in VR. Can you blame me? Moving on, let's talk about that Switch. So, the Wall Street Journal has recently announced that Nintendo is looking at making a new model of the Switch for 2019. Keep in mind, this does not mean a Switch 2. This means like a redesign of the Switch. Now, this was actually foreshadowed a little bit ahead of time. The Nintendo Switch hacking community, back when the 5.0 update came out, they noticed that there were files for something, and they were like, this looks like they're going to make a new Switch model that's going to use a new chipset. You see, the Nintendo Switch is heavily, heavily hackable because of the chipset that it's using. It's using one of the NVIDIA Tegra chipsets that just has a system-level security flaw with it that cannot be fixed. And there's nothing Nintendo can do about it, so they need to switch to a new chipset. And they said, okay, so Nintendo's going to make new models that use a new chipset. that can't be hacked, or can't be hacked as easily, I should say. So they're going to switch to a new chipset, right? And some people think that's all they're going to do. However, the fact that Nintendo has actually said something to their shareholders about a new Switch model in 2019 to help reinvigorate sales, which I find quite strange because, as far as I know, the Switch is selling quite well and will likely see a deluge of sales thanks to Smash Brothers this Christmas. But in 2019, they want to release a new Switch model. We don't know what all that will entail, but I can certainly list some distinct design flaws. Number one, the Nintendo Switch's entire power charging situation is dumb. Apparently, it does not use, don't use any third-party chargers with it at all. No third-party docks, no third-party chargers, no touch. Because the Switch, it uses a USB Type-C plug, it's not USB Type-C. It speaks a completely different language. It will ask for a certain amount of power and take 3 times that amount of power, which can lead to your Switch frying itself. And apparently, even when using the Nintendo charging system that speaks the proper language, it's throwing up errors all over the place behind the scenes. So that's a sign that their entire charging mechanism has distinct design problems. Not to mention the charging station. The dock for the Nintendo Switch has been my white whale for the longest time because Nintendo charges a ludicrous amount of money for their charging dock, and it is basically a hollow piece of plastic with some cords in it. It is very, very low tech what's inside that charging dock. But more than that, the charging dock is astonishingly poorly designed. I do think the HDMI cord plug is upside down. The way they have the panel set up is terrible. The fact that it only has one USB plug was a stupid idea. But more than that, the insides of it are all hard plastic. And I look at that and I go, what were you thinking? Because the charging station for the Nintendo Switch can scratch the screen. What? And all you had to do was put some foam in there, but they didn't put some foam in there. Nintendo, what were you thinking? It's all hard plastic. Put some foam in your Switch dock. But on top of that, one of the other problems with the Switch is the fact that the power plug for it is directly on the bottom. Why is that a problem? Well, it means you cannot charge and put the thing on a stand. You can't, charge it while you play when it's not hooked up to a TV. Just having it sitting on your desktop. Can't do that because the cord is going to get in the way of the stand. And the stand itself is astonishingly flimsy. The biggest design flaw, though, I would actually say is the controller toppers. Because, okay, the Switch has those 2 little controllers, and you slide them off, and you can split them apart and give them to people. But there's supposed to be this wrist strap topper you put on top of it that makes the L and R buttons bigger and makes the controller way more comfortable to hold. I quite like those things. It's almost impossible to hit the L and R buttons otherwise. And it does make them way more comfortable to hold. But that controller topper, it goes on really easy. Even if you put it on the wrong way, you could put it on upside down or on the wrong controller, and it'll go on really easy. And then it's hard to get off even if you put it on the right controller. I have nearly injured myself every single time I've tried to take that controller topper off. And I'm like, this is an astonishingly non-Nintendo design thing. This thing is dangerous. This thing will hurt you. It's a shame. On top of the fact that since the controller toppers are a separate piece, that means that it's really easy to lose them and it's hard to remember to bring them with you and stuff, which almost defeats the purpose of having the easy to break off controllers. The controller toppers should have folded back on the controllers. You should flip them back to attach them, and then when you pull the controllers off, you flip the controller toppers back down, and then when the controllers are attached to the central Switch, they just act kind of as grips with the controller toppers. That's how it should have worked, but that isn't how it works. I'm like, Nintendo, how did you make this massive design oversight? The screen scratches way too easily. The system is known to get very warm and sometimes can even warp because of that. It can get a little bit bent. So there's actually a lot of design flaws that Nintendo could iron out with a new Nintendo Switch model. With better thought-out controllers, better placed power plug, a whole new power charging setup, and just generally making the system get less hot. Some people are hoping that they'll use OLEDs, but people are saying don't expect OLEDs on your screens. Just expect them to use a better LCD manufacturing process on the Switch. So there's a lot of room for improvement with the Switch. It's a brilliant game console concept, but yeah, there's a lot of room for improvement. But the system is pretty well beloved. So, yeah, I could see that happening. I'm just surprised that Nintendo is waiting this long to put this out, because since there is such a large hacking issue on the Switch, it's like, Nintendo, you might want to get that out before Smash, because Smash is when all the Switches are going to fly off the shelves this Christmas. So, you need to get that new chip in there now. But I see no sign of them doing that. Good. So, I don't know what Nintendo's doing. But supposedly we have a new Switch model set for next year. It's not going to be anything too major, but it might have some quality of life improvements, some of which might be enticing enough to cause people to buy new Switches. We shall certainly see. What's more, though, this does mean that since these new Switches will be harder to hack, there may be a market for the older Model 1 Switches that are out now because of their incredible hackability. Some people really love what they're able to do with that system, just poking into it and fiddling around with it. I would certainly say, if the new Switch models are as enticing as they should be to reinvigorate sales, who knows? Maybe I'd buy a second one, transfer all my data to it, and then turn the original Switch into a system to hack and mess around with, because, Nintendo could ban you for having hacked software on your Switch, and it's like, I don't want that to happen. Let's transfer all my everything to another Switch, go offline with my original one, and hack the crap out of it. That sounds like a good idea. That sounds like good times. But we shall see, because of course Nintendo is going to have to do something enticing with a new Switch in order to get me to switch. Now, what's funny is some people have suggested, maybe Nintendo will do a cheaper portable-only Switch. And I'm like, you don't know how this works, do you? Because making a portable you can hook up to a TV, there's not much of a price difference. But if they did the opposite, a console-only Switch, they could definitely do drastic price cuts on that. Which maybe they will. Maybe that'll be one of the things, is here's a way cheaper console-only Switch. We'll see. Anyway, kind of like the Vita TV. The Vita TV was a huge price cut. It's just Sony handled that about as poorly as possible. Anyway, time for us to take a break. So here's Jumpsuit by 21 Pilots here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more Game. That was This Party by Houndmouth here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. So, before the break, we talked about Borderlands 2 VR and the talked about new Switch model. Now let us move along to some, let's talk about some of the new games that have come out. First of all, go be honest, I personally have not picked up Super Mario Party, which is of course the new 11th mainline Mario Party game for the Nintendo Switch, which came out last Friday, but I watched quite a few streams of it, and I have to say it looks rather promising. I admit I'm also not a Mario Party expert, and I would love to hear what the experts have to say, because it looks incredibly promising. See, Mario Party has been an institution for a while. Some people really, really love those games. But Mario Party 9 and 10 were more than a little controversial. They were created after Hudson Soft went out of business, or got bought by Konami, rather, and some of the old devs went and formed ND Cube, and they took over the Mario Party series. But Mario Party 9 and 10 both featured the car, wherein rather than each player moving individually across the board, everyone was just in a car, and they all moved together in this weird cooperative, competitive mess, and some of it I liked. I liked the fact that instead of competing over stars, you got mini stars from winning mini games, and victory was determined by mini stars. So your performance in the mini games mattered a lot more in the Mario Party 9 and 10, but arguably it mattered too much. People hate Mario Party 9. I never played it. I played 10, and I thought 10 was pretty cool, but that's because of Bowser Party, which was a very Wii U exclusive feature. Basically, Bowser Party is 4 players play with Wiimotes hooked up to the Switch, or with the Wii U, I'm sorry. Bowser Party was where 4 players played with Wiimotes hooked up to the Wii U, and then someone played as Bowser on the gamepad, and in every minigame, Bowser just beat up the other players, and got to harass them in these 1v4 games, and it's like, that is actually pretty cool. Also, Mario Party 10 had Jewel Drop, which was a fantastic little minigame. But Super Mario Party, the new 11th entry, finally, after all the fan demand, goes back to a traditional style of play where every single character moves individually. More than that, I think the board design is a lot better thought out. Like, some of the old Mario parties, the boards were just kind of too huge and sprawling and dumb. And this one, the boards seem a little bit smaller and better thought out. But on top of that, they've thought of more strategic things. This Mario Party has perhaps the most characters of any Mario Party, including just letting Bowser be playable as per normal. Because he's usually not playable, because he's all the bad spaces are Bowser's spaces, so Bowser has to be there. But this has, like, the most playable characters of any Mario Party ever, and in this case, it actually matters. The new big twist is that every character has their own custom dice block. So, certain characters will be like, okay, I don't roll a 1, but I also never roll a 6. Like, I think Mario had, like, a lot of 3s and 4s. So he always moved a decent number of spaces if you used the Mario dice block. But then you have, like, riskier characters that are like, oh, I can move 7 and 8 spaces, or you might not move at all and instead lose coins. Like, shoot, one character can move 10 spaces if you roll correctly. I think it was Donkey Kong. I think Donkey Kong, half of his dice was you stay in place and lose 3 coins, and the other half is like you move 8, 9, and 10 spaces. So you are either plowing ahead or losing coins. But you can switch from your character dice block to a normal 1 to 6 six-sided die. You can switch to that as well. But that means that there is, like, a degree of strategy where it's like, which dice block do I use? My character's unique dice block or the regular one? On top of that, they added in the new ally system, where when you land on certain spaces, you can get allies. You can get a freaking adventuring party in Mario Party and have, like, 3 or 4 characters all following behind you. And they matter, because when you roll the dice, you get to use their custom character dice blocks, and they roll dice with you. So when you get allies, you move stupid far, and some minigames even have your allies helping you. And I saw one game last night that got utterly ludicrous, where almost every single character in the game was on screen at once. Like, 2 different players had a full party and the others had a bunch of characters. So you had, like, I want to say almost 20 different Mario characters all on screen at once playing mini games together. And it was like, that is freaking impressive. I am liking this. However, there is, of course, a downside. For some weird reason, Super Mario Party only has 4 boards for the main game. It has a bunch of different, like, side modes. Like, there's this crazy river rafting mode where, like, you and the other players are going down a river and you're trying to run into minigame balloons to earn points. And then there's another mode that's basically like Rhythm Heaven, where you play rhythmic minigames against one another. And there's a single-player, like, minigame Olympics mode. And there's an online mode that is only minigames. You cannot play the actual main boards online. But, yeah, so there's a bunch of different modes and unlockables and things. That's very nice. I'm very impressed. But the main game mode only has 4 boards, which is a little on the small side. Oh, yeah, and then there's also that mode where you can actually take, like, 2 switches and link them together to play certain mini-games as well. So there's a lot of, like, really cool things in Super Mario Party, but there's also, it just doesn't have enough boards. And of course, no online for the actual main board game. But it does seem like a very promising improvement over past Mario Parties. Like, I don't know if people are going to consider it the best Mario Party, but I think people will consider this one of the good ones. Like, I think some people like it more than Mario Party 4 and 5. I forget, like, the exact reasoning, but yeah. Which, on that note, with the N64 Classic pretty much guaranteed to come out, the question is, how many Mario Parties are going to be in that? Is it just going to be Mario Party 1? 2? Will they have 1, 2, and 3? How are they going to handle those controllers? Going to be interesting to see. I am actually intrigued by the prospect of the N64 Classic. Slight abrupt subject change. Because the N64 is so well known for its 4-player multiplayer that they kind of have to sell the N64 Classic with 4 controllers, or at least 4 controller ports. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that, because, 4-player is what the N64 was all about. And that could be a really good selling point for an N64 Classic, because not only is the N64 a little harder to emulate on your computer, but, like, actually getting 4 people around a TV with a little mini N64 playing original Smash and Mario Party and some other games, Mario Kart 64 obviously, I think there's a real charm to that, and I think that's going to really entice people. This is going to be one of the reasons why in the mini console wars I'm going mini N64 over mini PlayStation. I kind of don't think the mini PlayStation is going to be very good, but it is a thing that is coming. Anyway, onto the games I played. I finally got a stream up. If you hit up the GameBabble YouTube channel, not GameBabble Live Archive, which you can check out to listen to previous episodes of this show if you've missed any, including this episode if you're tuning in late. I will try to get it up as fast as I can. But I was checking out I finally got around to doing a stream again. Gave up on trying to stream PC VR because that's still giving me a headache. But I did a stream, played some good PSVR games. Not even my entire backlog of PSVR games I need to play, but I played Creed, Dark Eclipse, some Firewall Zero Hour, which we've already talked about, and Dancing Beauty Idol Project, which turned out a lot better than I expected, if a little bit too anime at times. So first of all, Creed, fantastic. Played it online, and my opponent looked a little weird and limp-wristed, but it didn't matter. I got to box someone over the internet. Creed is, of course, a boxing game in VR based on the spin-off of the Rocky franchise. And if you play on PS4, you can even play as Rocky Balboa. And the thing that excited me was that they finally, when they launched it, they added in PvP so you can box people over the internet. If you want Punch-Out style boxing, pick up Knockout League. Knockout League is literally Punch-Out in VR. But Punch-Out, if you really look at it, isn't real boxing. It's this weird rhythmic, dodge your opponent's hits, look for an opening, then pummel them kind of cartoony, arcadey boxing thing. Creed, however, is actual real boxing, where you're throwing out your fist and how you throw your punch and how hard you punch all matter, and you're blocking and you're dodging and bobbing and weaving, and it's a little awkward moving around the arena, but you certainly can. Like, there's two ways to do it. You can either, like, hold down the move buttons and shake the controllers as though you're jogging forward to move, which I actually found kind of awkward. The other one is you spin them. They call this advanced movement. It's like you spin them forward to move forward, you spin them back to move back, and spin them left, spin them right. And they were like, this is good because it allows you to keep your guard up. You know, you could be blocking, but then you're, you know, sort of spinning your dukes, if you know what I mean. And you could use that to move around the arena, and I found that much better because walking backwards with the default control scheme is really hard, and it's a lot easier with the advanced movement scheme. And moving backwards, I think, is the most important thing in boxing for me. I very much was like, I need to back up. I need to make my opponent approach me. It's fun. And one of the things I really like is the way they handled fatigue, because I know a lot of people are like, what the heck, I'm the guy throwing punches here, why does my character have fatigue? But that's because your character is actually taking hits. Your character is doing even more physical exertion than you. And the way they handle fatigue in this game is that your arms move slower, but they realized, wait a second, it would be really awkward if you were moving your physical arm and your in-game arm was lagging behind you. People would look at that and they'd go, oh no, my controller isn't working, what's going on? How do we let people know this is intentional? And the way they did that was that you can see your soul, is the way I put it. Like, there is, like, a ghostly outline of your body, and you can see that responding nice and easy, and then your character's actual muscled fist and arm is lagging behind it. And I'm like, that makes perfect sense. My soul is moving faster than my body because I'm so tired. In some weird way, that made, like, the most sense of anything ever. I'm like, I get it, you know, because I've had those situations where you try to move your body and you're thinking of moving your body faster than your body can actually move. And that was a really good way to portray that in VR. I really liked that. And the fact that I was able to, like, play that online, even though the characters, when you're playing online, they look a little goofy. There's a reason for that. You know, they're only tracking your head and your fists, so they don't really know the position of your arms. So they get kind of tangled up and goofy looking. So, okay, fine. You're fighting a goofy, limp-wristed opponent. Doesn't matter. You still get to punch someone over the internet. And that alone, very delightful. I want to spend a lot more time punching people over the internet. I like Creed. Creed makes me a very, very, very happy gel. That is like the game I bought a PSVR for. And you can get it on PC as well. I'm glad I have it on PSVR though, because holy God, I prefer the PSVR. The PC VR is just turning into a headache because if you didn't catch last week, all the headsets are poorly designed for PC. At least the ones that aren't Windows Mixed Reality. I haven't tried Windows Mixed Reality. I have concerns about how Windows Mixed Reality handles its tracking, especially for its actual controllers. But those look like way better designed headsets. But yeah, the Oculus Rift doesn't fit if you wear glasses. Like, if you have really small glasses, it kind of will, but yeah, no, it just takes the glasses and mashes them into my face. It's terrible. And then the HTC Vive, the head strap, is a poorly designed dumpster fire. Like, I don't know which of these to return. I want to keep one of them, but they're both terrible. I'm like, what the heck? And then the HTC Vive controllers are not that good. Like, I know the moves don't have as good a tracking as the Vive controllers, and I can confirm that, but oh, yeah, they feel so much better in your hand. The moves really do feel better in your hand. Dark Eclipse is a game that makes me sad. It's a new, it is a real-time strategy game. They call it a MOBA, but it's actually closer to a real-time strategy game from Sunsoft in VR. And it's free to play, and then it has a bunch of microtransactions like an actual MOBA. And I'm just sitting here looking at it, and I'm going, so this game's doomed. That makes me sad. I like Sunsoft. They're one of my favorite companies. But this game is doomed. Because there aren't enough people who are going to play this game in VR. There isn't enough VR ownership to justify a multiplayer-only, online-only, microtransaction-based game. On top of the fact that a lot of the characters just aren't all that appealing. And it's a shame, because playing real-time strategy games in VR is freaking amazing. And even though I lost, I had a blast, because, you're looming over this battlefield, and you're pulling it towards you, and you're grabbing these characters and telling them, go here, go here, go here, with this virtual hand, just grabbing their command polygon and placing it on the spot on the map, and you can step forward and look at it, zoom really close in as you watch these little miniature figures running around the map. It feels really good. But it has a lot of problems. Like, you can't navigate the menus with the Move controller, and it gets confused about what the regular controller is, because I had to use the aim. It was weird. And I remember the one time I tried to play online, my hand was weirdly detected like 2 feet behind me, and I couldn't get my hand in front of me, even though it was. So Dark Eclipse has some bugs, and that's a problem. And then you have the one I picked up from the Hong Kong store, which is Dancing Beauty Idol Project, which turned out way better than I thought it would. It is, in fact, it is made in Shanghai, is completely in Japanese, and has, in terms of voices, and has English subtitles. And it is a VR dancing game dating sim? Except I'm not sure about your relation to the girl, whose name is Candy, but the subtitles say it's Tang Tang. Okay. I actually played through the whole thing, and it was shockingly good for what it was. Like, the story mode actually, you got to make choices, and they played out, and there's like 4 or 5 different endings to it. And the idea is that you're training this girl to compete in like an idol competition. And so you actually like go to a dance studio and you do this dancing minigame along with her, and then sometimes you do other minigames. And then, you go and you talk and you chat, and it's like, this is pretty cool. And it's kind of short. It lasts about an hour. My biggest beef is the fact that, near as I can tell, and I need to double check if there's a way to change this, you can't actually set what your training is. And so you just wind up playing the same song over and over and over again for an hour, and that kind of gets annoying. It makes sense in context, but still. And the game has 6 different songs with 3 different difficulty levels each, which you unlock as you play through story mode. Then you could go to the dancing mode, and you can actually play them. And the way the dancing works is basically the girl dances in front of you, and these little colored balls fly at you, and you get the correct controller to the correct ball, and you pull the trigger to pop it. And it all goes along with the music, and it worked really nicely. Not the greatest music game in VR, but solid. I had a fun time with it, and was shocked by how good the cloth physics were. Like, I don't know why a game like that has such good cloth physics, but they are really nice. Anyway, we need to take a break. So, here is Heavy by Linkin Park here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more. That was Lake Effect Kid by Fallout Boy here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. Welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. Though if you miss an episode or are tuning in late, don't forget, you can just search GameBabble Live Archive on YouTube, and you will find our archive of all 60-plus past episodes, including this one. I'm going to try to get it out in a day or two, though I make no guarantees. Before next week, this episode will be up. I should stop making promises, because I always nearly break them. Anyway, though. Yeah, so, welcome back to the show. Got a little bit more news involving Borderlands 2 VR, which was just announced, and people are scrambling over. It looks like there is definitely no aim support, but it does have move support for 2 move controllers. and it's looking like it might have smooth movement with 2 moves, which, honestly, if it has smooth movement with 2 moves, I'm fine. Like, the aim is nice, but I don't need the aim. As long as I have smooth movement with 2 moves, that'll work. I can do that. But what's interesting is someone was looking, and it looks like it does have the DLC campaigns, because they noticed a scene in the trailer which featured a bit of Mr. Torg's campaign, but it's just not going to have the DLC hunters because they're reconfiguring all the skill trees for the lack of co-op, which is still the dumbest thing. Why would you remove the co-op? You built your entire game around co-op play and you're removing the co-op. Cripes and criminy. So, we mentioned that next year Nintendo is looking at putting out a new model of the Switch, not an actually new system, but a new design of it, which might fix some of its design flaws, make it a little better, certainly make it less hackable, because the Switch is very hackable. But Sony, in a recent talk, has said that the PlayStation 5 is absolutely necessary. They will be making a PlayStation 5. They say the architecture will likely be very similar to the PlayStation 4, but that, yes, they definitely need a new leap. And there was a lot of weird things being said, like there's talk of them having some kind of streaming tablet thing, which sounds like a terrible idea, because they're like, oh, streaming games over the internet is so much more popular now. And yeah, no, you don't. No one uses streaming gaming services. They don't work. Quit thinking they do. They don't. No one likes them. And anyone who does like them clearly has no taste. I know that's a very harsh statement to make, but hear me out here. In order to play games streamed over the internet, we are talking about a game running on a computer somewhere else in the country, and then the video is being streamed to you while you enter inputs that are then sent to the computer. The point is, this invariably will introduce a degree of input lag. And I feel this is really, really bad. However, a lot of modern games recently have been getting kind of laggy. Just a lot of AAA games, they focus so much on having smooth, realistic animation that there is an inherent delay between when you do an input and when your character moves. So if you were to stream something like Heavenly Sword over the internet, would you really even be able to tell the difference considering the ludicrous amount of input lag in that stupid game? I don't think you could. Because that game, by its very nature, has a ludicrous amount of input lag. And so many games have so much input lag that I'm thinking that it's starting to desensitize people and make them think that streaming games over the internet is fine. But it would not work with something like a fighting game. You cannot play a fighting game streamed over the internet. Literally impossible. Because you need quick, immediate, responsive controls. Like, Street Fighter V got crap for having 8 frames of input delay. 8 frames, okay? 8 frames. Could you imagine if there was a full millisecond of input delay? It would be unplayable. Throw it out the window. Don't even think that that's a good idea, okay? So I am not on board with streaming gaming. But the other thing Sony was talking about was a greater focus on esports, and how important that is. And I'm hoping that's causing them to realize, oh yeah, cross-platform play is ludicrously important. They recently have allowed cross-platform play with Fortnite. They're looking at adding cross-platform play for other games, because they've previously said, we thought having our own closed ecosystem gave PlayStation owners a better experience, but we've realized that certain multiplayer games are enhanced by having cross-platform play, and people feel it provides a better value. Yeah, no freaking kidding. When you are trying to play a game competitively, you do not want to be locked into just the system you picked. You want to be able to play with everyone who has that game, because otherwise you wind up splitting up the player base and ruining the game. And, in turn, ruining its play on your system. So having cross-platform play is very, very important for online multiplayer games, for esports and stuff. So hopefully this is them realizing that. I had previously stated that Sony's obstinance in having cross-platform play was a sign that the PlayStation 5 was going to utterly collapse in on itself. Why? Because of hubris. Every single time throughout the entire history... Sorry, hands are going crazy. Smacked the microphone there. Hope you didn't hear too much of that. Every single time, though, throughout the history of video games... Smacking the mic all over the place today. Every single time, history of video games... Every time a company has fallen off the top, it's been because of hubris and ego. The N64, was beaten by the PS1 because Nintendo got arrogant. They had draconian release policies. They were overly strict. A lot of people just couldn't get their games on N64. They had too many rules in place. And Sony was super open and let pretty much anyone release anything on the PS1. So people flocked to the PS1. It got a larger library of games. It wound up doing better. But then, with the PlayStation 3, Sony said $599 for giant enemy crabs. We've got practically no games to show. Our game costs twice as much as you actually want to pay for it, but you'll pay it because we're providing a premium experience, even though we have nothing to show to prove how premium our experience is. And that caused the 360 to actually beat out the PS3. But then, because of the success of the 360, the Xbox One said, oh yeah, so our system's always going to be online and you're going to download all your games. And if you can't connect to the internet, well, screw you, buddy. And it's always going to be monitoring you through its required Connect. And everyone said, yeah, screw that. And Microsoft backpedaled really hard, but it was too little too late. And the Xbox One has been beaten out by the PlayStation 4. And now the Nintendo Switch is rising up. So this has put us in a very interesting situation now, hasn't it? PS4 is currently doing well, but Sony's arrogance with crossplay could have been a problem, but Sony has relented. They might be course-correcting just in time to ensure the PlayStation 5 has a chance. Now, I know a lot of people are expecting Sony to copy Nintendo and basically make a PlayStation Switch. I don't think that's going to happen. And the reason I don't think that's going to happen is because a PlayStation Switch wouldn't be as powerful as the PS4. That's the thing. The Switch is significantly less powerful than the Xbox One and PS4, even in their base models. And while Sony could sure produce a portable console hybrid that is more powerful than the Switch, it wouldn't be more powerful than the PS4, and thus it couldn't replace it and be its successor. So I think the PlayStation 5 is definitely going to be more powerful than the PS4. I think that's going to be a necessity in the years to come. And I think if Sony's smart, their main focus is definitely going to be on having a more VR-centric experience. I know, I'm biased. I love my PlayStation VR. I think there's a lot of potential there. And I think one of the things that would have the most potential, and this is something that would really be this is one of the things, we need to talk about console advantages. Because the PC is a major player here. And PCs can be upgraded infinitely, and there's no rules or regulations about what can be released on PC. So there's just all sorts of just utter madness on PC with pretty much no accountability, and that can be a positive thing. But PCs can also be a pain in the butt. They can be a hassle, and my experience with PC VR has certainly proven that. I'm just going to be blunt. VR on PCs is in beta. The headsets are poorly designed. The interfaces are literally still in beta testing. I tried to use this thing called Viveport, which for some reason is a second Vive exclusive shop for the Vive. And I had to bring up a menu to navigate the menu because the menu locked up because it wanted me to complete a tutorial that I couldn't complete because I had used the menu to enter the menu. Because I was like, oh, I want to download this free Ready Player One game. Clicked that, and then it's like, no, you need to click this thing for a VR preview. It's like, well, this game doesn't have a VR preview. And since I couldn't click the thing to see a VR preview, I couldn't click any other buttons. Dumb things like that keep happening. Let's not even talk about the sheer number of times that little pop-up boxes appear on your desktop that you can't see because you're in VR. So you can't click them because you're in VR. And there is a way to view your desktop and click around your desktop while you have the Vive on, but then it keeps, losing my mouse. I can move the mouse around and click on a few things, and all of a sudden it just stops responding. No, you're Your pointer isn't your mouse anymore. Screw you. Why? Yeah, PC VR is very much still in beta. And all the games that are on PC VR that aren't on console VR, that aren't on PS VR, they're still in beta. Sirento is still in beta. It gets out of beta in January when it releases on PS VR. This is a situation that we are in. So, PC VR is still in beta. It's still a hassle. It's a pain in the butt to try to get it to run right. PS VR is honestly a more consumer-friendly experience. It's a better designed headset. It's easier to use. It causes way less problems. The tracking's not as good. The controller design could use a better button layout, but honestly, it's better than the Vive controller. Really, trackpads? Ugh. So, yeah, I would actually say the PS VR experience, even though it has lower resolution screens and is the heavier headset with the smaller library of games that are running worse at a lower resolution with inferior tracking, as an experience, PS VR blows PC VR completely out of the water. Because you just pop it on your friggin' head, it doesn't have any issues with glasses, and it just works. I click the thing, it goes. And when it crashes, the PS4 handles it, rather than the PC popping up boxes on my desktop that I can't even see and don't even know are there because I'm in VR. It's just a more finished VR experience. And I think this is why a lot of companies, including Oculus, are going with these self-contained VR console ideas like the Oculus Go and the recently announced Oculus Quest. But those limit themselves by what games they can actually play. I think the PS5 would benefit from focusing more on VR. Not VR exclusive, obviously. Keep your standard games. No, what I mean, one of my favorite ways to describe the VR experience is like an infinite inch big screen TV. Because the experience surrounds you. And on PC, I've gotten to experience even more of that thanks to, Dolphin VR. There's a way to play a GameCube and Wii emulator in VR, and it's a little wonky. These games aren't meant to be played in VR, but it was really nice. I played like SSX, Tricky, and 3 in VR, and it was really nice. Even though, it's not rendering the area behind me because on GameCube, that's not there, so to save space, it doesn't render the area behind you. It's a normal thing. But even just staring straight ahead, seeing my character about, chest height, and then seeing this sprawling snowscape in front of me, it was beautiful. And that's what I want for the PS5. What I think would give the PS5 a distinct advantage would be built-in VR support for all 3D games. This is possible. This could be done at a console level. And I don't mean in first person. You can do a VR game in third person, and it's great. I've done it. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. It can be a little weird. Sometimes it's like playing with action figures. There's this game called Preda Vendetta. And it's like Diablo, kind of, but in VR, and it's in third person. And yeah, it looks like you're remote controlling action figures in a gigantic diorama. And it's kind of cool. It is a very neat way to view things. I think the PlayStation 5 will have a PlayStation VR 2, and I think that having VR support for all 3D games would be a ballsy move that could give it a distinct edge. Because while there are ways to convince your computer to let you play pretty much everything in VR, it isn't really meant for it, and winds up being it can be glitchy and weird, and there's hiccups and problems, and you have to pay extra money for it for some weird reason. This is really annoying me in VR. But the point is, playing games in, you could make theoretically any 3D game playable in VR, so making that a system-level function of the PS5, just something it does automatically, would give it a distinct advantage over PC. It would really cause people to warm up to the VR market, because, cripes, that would mean literally everything on PS5 could be played in VR. That I think, would be a way, and then the VR is so much easier to use on PS4, and I assume it would be on PS5. Please don't drop this ball, Sony. Sony's going to drop the ball. But please don't. But if they actually go this route, I think it could give the PS5 its own unique advantage over other systems, especially if they remember to have PS4 backwards compatibility. That's kind of important, and I hope Sony learns that lesson. But I think that would give it a unique advantage that its competitors don't have, and that would allow it to have a step up, because they can't compete with the Switch. They just can't, because they can't bring their technology backwards to compete with the Switch. The Switch is less powerful than the PS4, so you can't make a PS5 that's a portable console hybrid. It would be dumb. It wouldn't work. Any solution to it involving streaming would be dumb and wouldn't work well. If Sony did that, they would just shoot themselves in the foot with the bazooka, which they've done before. So let's not say Sony wouldn't do that. It's that they shouldn't do that. Shouldn't. Focus on VR. It's your strength. You just don't know it yet. Actually, they kind of know it. Sony is actually the leader in the VR market because the PlayStation VR is so much easier to use. So maybe that'll be its strength. Maybe that'll be where it winds up succeeding. We will certainly find out in the near future. Yeah, I have no clue. I have no clue what they're gonna do with that. What else have we got here? Another point to talk about. Let's get a few other random bits of video game news out of the way. Monster Boy in the Cursed Kingdom has been delayed until December 4th. Monolith Soft, makers of the Xenoblade series, are recruiting for a new RPG, which might be a new Xenoblade. Or maybe something even more new. Yugi has indeed been shown for Jump Force. There is a trailer out. You can now see Yugi fighting Frieza on, I want to say that, on a bridge. It's neat. Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet has a new expansion set for January. Good times there. And perhaps one of the more interesting things is that Skybound Games, makers of Slime Rancher, are set to finish the Telltale series, The Walking Dead, the final season. If you haven't been keeping up, the Telltale games have been very popular for being story-driven, point-and-click adventure-type games. However, they've been recycling the same engine, which has been incredibly dated for years, and they've overextended themselves, getting way too many licenses and making way too many of these episodic adventure games on increasingly dated engines, and this has cost them. Telltale Games is now out of business, putting 255 employees at least out of jobs, and they can't get unemployment, and their health benefits have run out, if they even had them in the first place. And this all happened in the middle of them releasing, just before they released the second episode of the final season of The Walking Dead, the Telltale series. And the problem there is they already sold a season pass for that. So people have already bought that complete series, and then the company goes out of business. What do? The answer was they looked around, and apparently Skybound Games, makers of Slime Rancher, will be finishing up the season for them, so that way they're not in deep fight. That way they're not in deep legal trouble for selling a game and not delivering it. So good that that's happening. I know some people have said, pay your employees first, and it would be nice if they could, but this is actually a bigger priority for them because, yes, they have sold a game that they can't make because they're out of business. So they had to find someone to take over or face massive legal ramifications. And apparently Skybound, I don't know much about them, but apparently they mostly do comic publishing. So maybe things are in good hands. And I think I heard that some of the original team will also be with them. So fans of the Telltale Walking Dead series, it'll get finished up. It'll be interesting to see what Skybound does with it. Anyway, it is time for us to take a break, so here is Death Dance by Seven Dust, here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind, and stay tuned for just a little bit more of GameBabble Live. That was Anybody by Young Thug featuring Nicki Minaj here on 89.5 FM, KCFE The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Dell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m., meaning we are coming up on our final segment. But if you're tuning in late, don't worry. Just go to YouTube and type in GameBabble Live Archive, and you should slam face first into one of over 60 different episodes of GameBabble Live, and this episode will be up before the end of the week. So, you'll be able to catch it there. I'll try to get it up as soon as I can. Things have a tendency of getting in my way. But, anyway, so, for the final segment, we have a few more pieces of interesting information. First of all, Warriors Orochi 4 comes out next week, but Dynasty Warriors 9 is going to desperately try to save itself, as Dynasty Warriors 9 is going to have a free update that adds local split screen and online co-op. Somehow. Dude, your game runs at sub 30 FPS in single screen. How in the heck are they going to do split screen in Dynasty Warriors 9? How's that even possible? I'm almost interested. There's going to be like other content updates that come with it as well. Again, they're desperately trying to fix Dynasty Warriors 9. It's like, dude, just give up. Just give up. It was a mistake. You screwed up. It was a bad idea. Just abandon it, please. But we're gonna try to fix it. So we'll see how that goes. Who knows? Maybe they'll find a way to make it work. But yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Meanwhile, From Software is asking fans to vote for their favorite Armored Core music tracks to celebrate the upcoming complete Armored Core soundtrack coming out in November. In Japan for the series' 20th anniversary, and Armored Core fans are like, quit jerking us around and give us information on a new Armored Core. From Software has been in a bit of a pickle on this. See, before Dark Souls exploded onto the scene, Armored Core was what From Software was known for. It was their big series. It's what put them on the map, and they not only made 5 different Armored Cores, but they made numerous expansion packs for each and every one of them. I mean, Armored Core 1 has 3 different expansions, Project Phantasma and Master of the Arena, two expansions than the original. So there's 3 different Armored Core 1s, there's 2 Armored Core 2s, Armored Core 3 had a bunch, and then there was Armored Core Nexus, which wasn't that actually like kind of a 3.5, and then there was 4 and 5, and then the series vanished after Armored Core V-Day, I think it was called, and the series just kind of stopped. And fans have been very disappointed in this, because this was when Dark Souls came out and became this huge success. The biggest success From Software has ever had. Armored Core was successful, but Dark Souls was explosively successful. And ever since then, they've just been making Souls-like games to the point where people think that's all From Software does. But in the past, From Software was known for their mecha games, for their giant robot games, to the point where other companies would hire them to make giant robot games. There is actually a Super Robot Wars called Super Robot Wars Ace, another Centuries episode, which is an action game that's made by From Software. It's kind of them doing Zone of the Enders, but with classic different giant robots from throughout different series. And Ace 3 actually had Godanner in it. It was the first appearance of Godanner in a Super Robot Wars game. Made me very happy, though I never made it that far in the game. Capcom hired them to do that awful Kinect Steel Battalion, which they tried their best with, but it was on Kinect. That was the problem. Microsoft was kind of half-funding that one. But yeah, when you thought giant robot games, you thought From Software. That was what they did. Not, super hard, challenging, creepy, dark adventure games. They did some of those in the past, but none of them were successful. And then Dark Souls takes off, and they have done nothing but Dark Souls. Demon Souls took off, actually. But yeah, still, they've done nothing but Souls-like games. Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, and people think that's all From Software is, and some people, even disregard their great history of games. It's like, you people don't know what From Software is. They are not just Souls games, although that's kind of what they've turned into, because thanks to this incredible demand for Souls games because they've made so much more money and the amount of effort they have to put into them. It's looking like a lot of the old Armored Core team, meaning the original From Software crew, may have left to go make Daemon X Machina on the Nintendo Switch. And then, like, the head Armored Core guy left to join Square Enix to make a new spin-off of the Front Mission series. So it's questionable how much of the old From Software crew is even still at From Software, as they may have just devolved into the Souls studio, and I would absolutely consider that a de-evolution. From Software shouldn't be known for making these stupid Souls games. They should be known for their adventurous game design, how they take risks, how nothing they've made is standard at all. From Software was a very risky and ballsy company, and that's what produced the Souls series. But now, they've been forced into making so many Souls games, they haven't produced anything else in ages. Which was why their big thing with their next games was no more Souls games. We're done. And then they show Sekiro, which is not a Souls game, and people are still regarding it as a Souls game because people are stupid. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is not a Souls game. They are trying to do an action game again. They are trying to do a Ninja Blade again. And I wish them the best of luck. I hope it's even half as good as Ninja Blade was. I love Ninja Blade, by the way. I should give that one a shot, but I'm actually really skeptical on From Software because I don't like the Souls games. I like From Software. I don't like the Souls games, and they haven't made anything that isn't a Souls game in, like, cripes, like, many, many, many years, okay? But this is where things get interesting, because they've said they have a bunch of games in development. We know about Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. We know about Deracine. And they say that they will be hosting their own special games event October 18th in Japan, where people will be able to get their hands on Sekiro and Deracine. And maybe more. Could this be where From Software makes their big comeback? Could they show us something new and innovative, or bring back a classic like Lost Kingdom? You want to talk about a creative and innovative game? Play Lost Kingdom on the GameCube. That's prime From Software. Lost Kingdom, if you've never played it, it is a card-based action RPG, and for some reason everything on GameCube was card-based, and people go, oh no, not card-based. No, give it a shot. Because what happens is, okay, you're a character, and you fight with different cards, right? So you get into a fight, and you draw a hand, and then each card is assigned to a face button on your GameCube controller. And then you press that button to use that card, and like some cards would just summon a monster to pop up and swing a weapon. And every time you press that button, that monster pops up, swings a weapon, but it has a limited number of uses. Others would actually summon a monster to the field that would fight alongside with you. Others would actually be like big flashy summon spells. And like some monsters, you'd summon them to the field and they'd have an effect, and then you use these other cards. Like, there were so many elements to those games. And the best part was, Lost Kingdom 2 used the same cards as Lost Kingdom 1. The big difference was Lost Kingdom 1. You went to a separate battle screen when you fought your opponents. Lost Kingdom 2, you fought the opponents on the world map. It had different strengths and weaknesses. I preferred Lost Kingdom 1. A friend of mine preferred Lost Kingdom 2. Didn't matter. You can fight Lost Kingdom 1 versus Lost Kingdom 2 in the Lost Kingdom 2 versus mode, which is cool as heck because they use the same cards. And it doesn't matter when you're in a versus arena, which Lost Kingdom you prefer. So, very, very brilliant game. That's what they used to do. Lost Kingdom was not Dark Souls. It was something else, and something brilliant in its own right. Armored Core's sheer adventurousness with how detailed the mech building was unique in its own right. And let us not forget my personal favorite, Frame Gride, which was like a more arcadey, easier to play Armored Core, but with Guy Melfs from Escaflowne. It was medieval Armored Core with magic knight mecha. And all your different weapons were magic, so your homing missiles were actually green magic energy birds. It was awesome. That's what From Software used to be, and I do worry that they could just be devolving into that studio what makes the Souls games, which eventually one of these people making these Souls-like games is going to beat them hard enough that they won't be able to fall back on that, and that could have serious repercussions for their studio. So I hope that they can break this trend and From Software can show the world something beyond a Souls game. Here's hoping, because I like From Software. And let's see, anything else I need to mention? I guess the last thing to talk about is, I was going to do a longer segment on this, but maybe we'll talk about it later. Either way, apparently, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a grindy slog on purpose. Because, yeah, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, single-player game, but it has a cash shop in-game where you spend money you spend actual real-life money to buy certain stupid crap, including horse armor. And some of the things are there's actually a tab called Time Savers, which can let you, buy certain things that you grind for, including an experience booster. And people have been reporting the game is much better with an experience booster. And it is a grindy slog without it. So in short, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, they quartered the amount of experience you get in that game. So that way they can sell you experience boosters to fix the grind and make you gain experience at the original rate you're supposed to. So Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a noticeably worse game than its predecessors because of microtransactions. Good job. Good job, Ubisoft. Screw you. Let us not even talk about the leaks about Ubisoft's internal corporate culture, which has gone completely insane. At this point, I kind of want Ubisoft to just burn to the ground. Just end it now. Just, no. The situation inside of Ubisoft is a joke. And that company needs to go out of business. As does a lot of AAA game companies. That was a thing I was going to touch on. Maybe we'll touch on it week after next, because I will not be here next week. Studio's kind of going on a little bit of a break there. So I will be back week after next. And maybe then I'll remember to talk about this, maybe not. But I've noticed more and more, a lot of my friends who love video games, we're all pretty on board with another video game crash. We're waiting on it. Because you know what? We know that video games are never going to go away. If all the companies went out of business right now, guess what? I still got RPG Maker. I can make you something. We can all cook something up. Someone will make games. Video games are so ingrained now. There's so much gaming out there that video games as a whole won't crash the way they did in 1983, I believe it was. And even then, that was only America, and that was only the console market. It's not even gonna crash that hard. But the AAA gaming market needs to implode because it is getting stupid with 9 billion special collector's editions of every game, some of which don't even come with the actual game, copious amounts of day one DLC and microtransactions that resemble free-to-play games, but you have to pay actual money for the game, to the point where there's actually starting to be legal repercussions for these companies as different countries are starting to outlaw their own business practices, and the companies are begging people to let them take advantage of them. It's kind of messed up. It's kind of very messed up. And, the AAA video game market needs to crash. Because video games are getting it's too expensive to make these giant, sprawling, open-world things at such a rate, and then in turn they have to force all these BS microtransactions to try to make up the cost, and if one of these games fails, then it hurts them massively and hundreds of people lose their job, and It's like, no, this isn't what video games are supposed to be. Stop it. We're not supposed to have a team of thousands working on these games. We're not supposed to spend 3, 4, 5 years developing a game. This isn't the way it should be. It needs to collapse. We need to start over. We need to have teams of 50 people or less, preferably closer to 20, making games in about a year and a half, on a less stressful schedule, on a much smaller scale. We need to scale back. This isn't sustainable. And I think a lot of people are realizing that. Tons of people are quitting their AAA jobs, starting to try to become indie developers. Lots of little indie studios are coming up. Lots of people are warming more up to indie games. I'm not even that big a fan of indie games, but I appreciate them immensely. And then the Switch is a good example of this. It can't do Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I think there's a way to play it in Japan on the Switch through streaming Cloud BS, by getting 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 Cloud BS, by getting